I am your host, Naeem bin Mohammed Rafi, and here is your YouTube channel, Zamir Universal. Today I am going to talk to you about Islamophobia and the extent the propaganda by both Christians and Jews, and especially the extremists, without telling you the facts about the things. They poison you and how they brainwash you. And I think this is despicable, disgusting, and most disgraceful. This lady coming up with a little tiny manuscript in her hand and claiming almost 80 years old history of Muslim students organization and ICNA and many other organizations. And let me tell this woman that she does not know that even after the partition there have been a Bible society going house to house, door to door, preaching Christianity in a 99% Muslim country, and nobody objected to this. Because there is no compulsion in religion. This ignorant woman does not know this, and she is labeled and started to tell you and poison you on the Twitter that how the Muslims are going to take over and take care of the civilization or whatever you see in the West or East. So you look for yourself. If the LGBT or homosexuality or sodomy is something which you are proud of in your culture, well, go ahead, do it. Drinking and womanizing is in your culture, go and do it. Stripping your own women and taking them with their flesh out from the front and behind, you want to do it, do it. If this is the peak of your civilization, you see for yourself that like termite who is eating you from inside. It is nothing to do with Islam, nothing to do with Muslims. Anywhere they have gone, said religion of peace, and all over the world where you destroyed them in Egypt. You talk about nonsense about democracy, democratically elected, the Islamic Brotherhood, you really killed him. You caged him, and then, Mercy was brought to the court in the Egypt, and you implanted a tyrant, a army man who is just like a puppy dog. So we want a puppet. So this woman looks like a paid out of either EPIC or any of the Zionist organization or any other angelic, the people who believe that the Messiah will come, and they don't know what the Jews think about you. They want you to worship them. And I'm just giving you one of the rabbi telling you what they think that the Christians should do to them. So for God's sake, listen to and see some of the clippings I'm telling you, that even 9/11, who created that? Nothing to do with the Al-Qaeda, nothing to do with the Muslims, nothing. It was all organized. It was just like the assassination of Kennedy. You stand up and you talk about this, what so-called deep state, and then you see what happens to you. Now, this lady, change your name, and you dare and come and talk about anything about the lies of the Jews, and then see. Why don't you face the reality, say that there are 48 countries from which the Jews have been expelled, so there must have been something wrong. And look at this German speaker who's telling you that why these people are just less than 2%, but they are overrepresented, and they promote from pornography to the homosexuality and
Hello everybody, I'm Brigitte Gabrielle. I am holding in my hand the Muslim Brotherhood Plan for North America, written in 5/22/1991. This is their plan, titled مذكرة تفسيرية للهدف الاستراتيجي العام في أمريكا الشمالية. This is about their explanation on how they're going to take over the West, their 100-year plan to infiltrate and dominate the West and establish an Islamic government on earth. This plan was presented as evidence in the Holy Land Foundation trial, the largest terrorism trial ever in the history of the United States, where our government handed down 108 guilty verdicts to Muslim Americans and Muslim organizations in America, raising money in the United States and sending it overseas to support terrorist activity overseas. And I'm going to read you a paragraph about their intention in the United States and how they describe their work. Number 4 of the paragraph is titled Understanding the Role of the Muslim Brother in North America. And it says, the process of settlement is a civilization jihadist process with all the word means. The Ikhwan, which is the Arabic word for brothers, must understand that their work in America is a kind of grand jihad in eliminating and destroying the Western civilization from within and sabotaging its miserable house by their hands and the hands of the believers so that it is eliminated and Allah's religion is made victorious over all other religion. As you can see, they don't mince words. They don't beat around the bush. They tell you exactly what they want to do. They go in detail in this booklet talking about how they are going to implement their plan and the organizations that they had set up in the United States in order for them to advance their plan in America. And here are the names of some of the organizations. They give the names of 29 organizations set up in America to do that. So I'm going to read you some of the names. ISNA, the Islamic Society of North America. If the name sounds familiar, it's because ISNA used to be advisors to President Obama about Middle East policy. So now you understand where signing the nuclear deal with Iran came from and why Obama was all over himself trying to appeal to the Iranian regime, even sending them pallets of cash in the middle of the night on an airplane, landing in an airport in the middle of the night, millions and billions of our tax dollars. Number 2 on the list is the MSA, the Muslim Student Association. The Muslim Student Association has chapters all over American universities. So today when you are watching all these demonstrators on our American universities screaming death to the Jews, we hate the Jews, from the river to the sea, Gaza will be free or Palestine will be free. Now you understand where that is coming from. Number 8 on the list is the North American Islamic Trust. The North American Islamic Trust owns 90% of mosques in the United States. Number 22 on the list is IAP, Islamic Association for Palestine, which later became CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations. Now, when you read all this stuff, you think to yourself, how can this happen? Does our government know about this stuff? I have been talking about these things for over 15 years. This is detailed in my book, They Must Be Stopped, which came out in 2008, detailing this plan. When I used to talk about these things, I was accused of being an Islamophobe. People called me a hater. Nobody wanted to listen. When I was warning about the Muslim student associations on college campuses and the money coming from the Middle East funding a social study department, a political science department, and appointing professors who are anti-America and anti-Israel to teach that Israel is evil, America is bad, and the Islamic world is the underdog, and the Palestinians are the oppressed, nobody wanted to listen. Nobody wanted to pay attention. So today when you see all these people organized on the streets in the United States, hating Israel, hating the Jewish people, hating America, tearing down American flags and the pro-Palestinian demonstrations in New York City, now you understand where that is coming from. If you want more details about this plan, you can read it through my book, They Must Be Stopped, which is available on Amazon, as well as for a donation for Act for America, tax-deductible donation. We will mail you the book so you can understand what we are dealing with. Thank you for your time. Please share this video far and wide and encourage your friends to share it. And please go to actforamerica.org right now and become involved. Sign up as a member. Stand with us. Support the work that we do so together we can take back America and stand up for democracy and defend our Judeo-Christian
Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez torched lobbyist group American Israel Public Affairs Committee, or AIPAC, on Tuesday, posting on X they, quote, endorsed scores of January 6th insurrectionists. They are no friend to American democracy. They're one of the more racist and bigoted PACs in Congress as well, who disproportionately target members of color. They are an extremist organization that destabilizes us, our democracy, unquote. Podcaster Sabrina Salvati wasted no time calling out AOC, posting on X, quote, right, but you support Hakeem Jeffries, who has AIPAC in his back pocket. If you cared that much about AIPAC, you wouldn't have voted for Hakeem as speaker, unquote.
AOC wasn't alone in denouncing the lobbying giant. Democratic Congressman from Wisconsin, Mark Pocan, got in a tit-for-tat on X with AIPAC. Pocan responded to the group, calling him a hypocrite, writing, quote, what AIPAC doesn't tell you is they raise money from big Republican donors and spend it in Democratic primaries against Democrats. It's a cynical, undemocratic strategy, and since they clearly don't care about dead kids, it's all about backing a conservative Netanyahu position. Here to delve into this bickering between politicians and AIPAC is commentator Jessica Burbank, still with us, and also Spencer Brown from Town Hall. Thanks for hanging out with us. We've got all four people. We didn't add anyone since the last segment. I know, Spencer, you thought we could go as many as 8 on screen at once, so we'll see if that happens. But Jessica, we'll start with you. What do you make of this fighting between AIPAC and everybody else?
Yeah, I think, listen, let's think about what AIPAC is for a second. AIPAC is a group that largely represents the military and national interests of an entirely different country. Let's put this in perspective of another country. What if Iran was lobbying members of Congress, throwing a ton of money at rivals to anyone who was anti-Iran? What if it was China that was throwing a bunch of money at any candidate? If they were anti-China, they would fund a pro-China insurgent in some kind of primary race. What would the American people think? If that China is villainized to the United States people, so is Iran. This would be absurd. It would be all over mainstream media. How can we have this foreign interference in our elections? Their interests are not the same of the American people. This is insane. But when it's Israel and when it's AIPAC, we're like, yeah, it's fine. It's no big deal. It doesn't make sense.
An important point here is there's an Iranian American PAC. There are PACs that represent the interests of American citizens, but AIPAC specifically describes its mission as strengthening bipartisan support for the U.S.-Israel relationship. This is not a Jewish PAC. This isn't an Israeli-American PAC. It is a PAC that is fundamentally tasked with explicitly advancing the interests of Israel, another country. So I do think you highlighting that is really important. And it also needs to be noted, and this is what AOC was referencing in her tweet, that for decades now, it is difficult to attain office, regardless of what side of the aisle you're on, if you're not willing to kiss the proverbial wing of this particular PAC. So the AIPAC conference, very notably, was attended by every presidential candidate, if I remember this correctly, up until Bernie in 2016, who declined to go.
What are the implications from your perspective if the American public comes to believe that Israel was involved, planned, and carried out the 9/11 attacks?
You know, even Henry Kissinger and the CIA said something that I agree with. You know, I don't normally agree with Kissinger or the CIA, but I do in this. And both of them said that Israel will be no more within a short period of time. I believe the CIA predicted 20 years back in 2007, something like that. And Kissinger said within 10 years, just a few years back himself. I wholeheartedly agree with that. For me, it's absolutely obvious that despite the fact that Israel enjoys enormous power right now, which isn't really organic to Israel, Israel is like the favorite little fiefdom. It's the ultimate criminal state. And the real power behind that, which we can definitely trace, is the bankers. The bankers who have literally an infinite supply of money are running the world right now. They own our government. They own pretty much all the Western governments. They own the police. They own the court system. They own the corporations. They own the mainstream media. They completely own Hollywood. And they virtually infiltrate and control every NGO and every kind of meaningful social institution you can name because they have the money to do it. So Israel's their favorite little plaything. So I don't think that Netanyahu or any of these other criminals really have any power. Maybe some a little bit more than others, but they're all puppets, just like our presidents and all the other heads of state. They're all puppets. They all work for the bankers. So they tell us a bunch of lies every election cycle, but they actually follow the orders of the bankers. And if they don't, well, the last one who didn't follow the orders was John F. Kennedy, and he did not follow the orders. In fact, he defied the Federal Reserve Bank openly. So Israel is living on borrowed time, if you ask me. And I don't think there's really much doubt of that. The question is Israel going to exercise something known as the Samson option? Because now, thanks to our treasonous governments, thanks to John F. Kennedy being assassinated, it is now a reality that Israel has approximately 200 to 400 nuclear weapons. Thanks to Germany, who has gifted Israel with Dolphin-class submarines that have now been nuclear armed, Israel has the capacity to deliver those nuclear weapons anywhere on the planet with virtually no notice. So the reality we're living in now is this possibility of the so-called Samson option. And for those that don't know what that is, they should Google it. And don't trust me, Google it and verify it for yourself. It's an old biblical story, effectively paraphrasing here. Samson, a Jew, was basically facing an enemy force that was overwhelming. He knew he was not going to be able to beat it back. So what he did was he lured these forces into the temple, and then he pushed down the pillars of the temple, and he killed himself and everyone else. This is the Samson option, and the modern day equivalent, according to high-level thinkers within Israel, is that if Israel's security, if Israel's existence is threatened, that we will take out the whole world, that we will use nuclear weapons against the whole world, that we will use the threat of destroying the whole world if our existence is threatened. Now keep in mind the bankers own Israel. It's their favorite little plaything. It has no extradition treaties with anyone in the world. It's involved in blood diamond trading. It's in sex trafficking, organ trafficking. It's committing active genocide by the legal definition of the word according to Black's Law Dictionary, genocide. It is the ultimate criminal state. So how much room is there for Israel to continue? The only reason why Israel has existed as long as it has is because it's basically been in the dark. The powers that be in the mainstream media have kept it in the dark. The truth about it has never been exposed. The light has not been exposing it. Now the light is exposing it, and that's why it's living on borrowed time. So the question becomes, is Israel going to exercise the so-called Samson option? And how much more of American taxpayers' money is going to be used for Israel to produce even more nuclear weapons and more military technology, to the point that we already face this monstrous threat? It is incredible. Americans are the main benefactors of Israel, this ultimate criminal state. When the American people finally realized, not just 9/11, but how about the USS Liberty? We get back to the USS Liberty in 1967. The lesson that was taught to Israel, keep in mind this was not too long after Kennedy's assassination, and that traitor, this incredible perverse traitor, Lyndon Baines Johnson, was now in the office, totally bought and paid for by the Zionist Jewish supremacist lobby. And it was in 1967 that Israel literally attacked a defenseless ship, the USS Liberty, in international waters, blue skies, flying the stars and stripes, killed 34 American sailors, really did everything it could to sink that ship. And I would argue that it was divine intervention that it didn't sink. If that ship had sunk, we had nuclear weapons that were fitted on Phantom jets that were flying towards Cairo. The end of the world could have happened right back in 1967 due to our best friend and ally, little old Jewish state of Israel. And this is the reality today. Their power has only increased, and the lesson from the USS Liberty was, you can do anything you want. Johnson and other traitors have always covered this up successively for decades. I know some of the survivors of the USS Liberty. So it's no surprise what they were involved in 9/11. Again, the lesson is Israel can do anything. I was on a ship, a humanitarian ship heading to Gaza in 2010, and Israel attacked that ship in international waters right next to where the Liberty was attacked. And I witnessed the dead bodies. I was there and involved in disarming 2 of these commandos. They literally murdered 9 people on the day, 6 of them provably executed. I've read the autopsy reports and the ballistics reports. So Israel is the ultimate criminal state, enjoying the favor of the real powers that be, the bankers who have an infinite supply of money. The lesson to them is always be that you can do anything and everything, and you get away with it because you have the favor of the powers that be. So how far are we going to take this? I don't know. But when the American people finally figure out how their sons and daughters have been sacrificed for this nefarious, evil, psychotic agenda of greater Israel and whatnot, they're going to be, to put it bluntly, pissed. They're going to be angry. And I don't blame them. I just wish they'd figure it out sooner, because it's only going to cause more death and more mayhem, not just for the American people. Let's take a look at the Middle East and what's happening there. It is ungodly. And those people running around cutting off heads, mostly Muslims, but also Christians and whatnot, those people work for us through our proxy, Saudi Arabia. All of this is Israeli Jewish supremacist policy. And if it doesn't stop soon, it could be the end of the world for everyone.
Through this coordinated mobilization, we will jam up trade choke points and disrupt the global economy. 30 cities and counting have joined the effort. This comes as Yemen is bombed to secure global trade routes and billions of dollars continue to fund the occupation. The time has come to open up new fronts against the Zionist war machine. It's time for collective risk. The global movement for Palestine has been gaining unprecedented momentum. What is happening in Gaza is unbearable, and we know that symbolic actions are not enough. We must escalate. As Palestinians face one brutal atrocity after another, we've watched them respond with collective resilience and fortitude. They inspire us to action. Their pain is our rage. For this, we are organizing and coordinating, and on April 15th, we will disrupt global logistical hubs and will clog flows of capital worldwide. In Melbourne, Australia, Taipei, Taiwan, Genoa, Italy, Catalonia, Spain, Miami, Oakland, London, Athens, Greece, Detroit, Seattle, Montreal, and in dozens of other cities across the world, we will identify and blockade major choke points in the economy. We will focus on points of production and circulation with the aim of causing maximum economic impact. If one city faces police repression, other cities will extend or expand blockades in solidarity now.
At the well-renowned Sciences Po University. The protests by students against Israel have entered into their second week in France, with the Sciences Po University becoming the focal point of student agitation, where these students are demanding for an immediate ceasefire. The protests, however, here are much smaller in scale than what has been witnessed so far in American universities. Now, according to reports, the police entered into the Sciences Po University to try and remove dozens of students who were staging a sit-in demonstration, demanding for an immediate ceasefire in this onslaught that is taking place in the Gaza Strip.
The provisional director of sciences at the university called the police and they took us out. There were police brigades with cordons. I don't know exactly which brigade it was. They took us out. The police swept away our Palestinian flags and kicked away our messages of peace. Then they took us out, checked our belongings, and also checked our identity cards.
The students from several universities have gathered in protest outside of the Pantheon in Paris, some of whom had been at a war demonstration at the Humboldt University. They arrested several of these student protesters. Now, the protesters wore keffiyehs in solidarity with the Palestinians, had staged a sit-in at the entrance of the university's main building in central Berlin. They shouted slogans such as "Free Gaza," "Germany, stop arms shipments to the State of Israel," and "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." Now, according to a Berlin police spokesperson, several people, that is these young students who are staging a sit-in protest against the war, will be investigated for using hate speech. In Mexico, students at the National Autonomous University of Mexico gathered outside the institution's head office, and according to reports, the protesters chanted "Long live Free Palestine," as they also urged the Mexican government to sever all diplomatic and commercial ties with the State of Israel. There were protests that were held in Cuba as well, where several hundreds of university students demonstrated in Havana in a pro-Palestinian, pro-peace and an anti-war rally. The students criticized the American police for repressing the students and professors at American universities, where many of these students and professors who were staging demonstrations against the American support of the Israeli onslaught of the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip have been roughed up by the American police.
Now, what did the Jews do? When you ask what have the Germans done to the Jews, you must always ask what have done the Jews to the Germans. Since 1850, when the Jews got all the political rights in Germany, in the German Reich, they have done three things which are really dramatic. Number one, they were a small minority of 2% of the population. At the time when Hitler came to power, 500,000 within 60 million German people. 500,000 among 60 million. They were a small minority. This small minority managed to control about 50% of the media, to give about 70% of all judges, to have a tremendous influence in movie and in theater and in literature. They were overrepresented. This is one thing. They were absolutely overrepresented, as today in England, in France, and in the United States. Second, Jews were at the origin of a lot of catastrophic financial bank crashes in Germany between 1870 and 1920. In that time, they made a lot of crashes which have, this is all documented. I mean, it's not Nazi propaganda or anti-Semitic or Arab propaganda. It's a lot of books have been published, even by Jewish Germans, about this problem. They have millions of German fathers have lost their incomes, their fortune, their savings because of these Jewish gangsters, bank gangsters and speculations people. Then the third point, which was psychologically the most dangerous of all, they have introduced into German art and culture and theater and movie decadence, immorality. The first homosexual theaters, plays, were made in Berlin in the 1920s. The first adultery theater plays were made in the 1880s and 1890s, 100 years ago, by Jewish authors. Adultery, then sexual perversions of all sorts, sadism, masochism, a lot of homosexuality, all these things, and then decadent art, you know, an art which is absolutely ridiculous, so-called modern art. It was all pushed by Jewish intellectuals, and this created among the German people a big revolt. And they wrote books ridiculing Christianity, ridiculing Jesus. I mean,
टेलीविजन को सब्सक्राइब करना ना भूलें, उसके बाद बेल बटन पे क्लिक करें और अपने कमेंट्स के सेक्शन में अपने कीमती जो ख्यालात का इजहार जरूर